You know, guys, for the longest time, I've been saying that South Africa will never go anywhere, or it will never get itself out of the problem that it is in right now without the help of young people. And at this moment, right here, we have a problem in South Africa because young people in this country are not interested in anything that has to do with politics. They are not even interested in registering to vote. Never mind going to the polls and vote. So, guys, what are we going to do to encourage young people to go to the polls to vote? What are we going to do to encourage young people to register to vote? What are you doing to encourage young people wherever that you are to actually take part in our political discord and actually go to the polls and vote? Because, guys, whether we like it or not, we can say whatever that we want to say, but without the participation of young people in this country will never get itself out of the problem that it's in right now. So what are we going to do?
So here's something interesting. South Africa has a youth voter problem, and it needs to be fixed very fast. Well, that's if democracy is to remain viable in this country. The youth aren't voting, and although this is a phenomenon that is prevalent in many other countries around the continent, it's important to look at the data and some of the reasons why young people aren't interested at all. And better yet, we need to start actioning reforms that will start to turn the tide. Okay, let's dive in. About 35% of South Africa's population is considered youth. Now, youth or young people in the South African context are usually those considered to be between the ages of 18 and 35. Stats SA, the National Stats Service of South Africa, estimates that in 2022, there were 20.6 million people classified between the ages of 20 and 39. 5.1 million of those people were youth between the ages of 15 and 19. But now let's talk voters. Out of the 25.9 million registered voters noted on the 14th of June 2023, only 213,000 were between the ages of 18 and 19. Yes, only 200,000. 3.7 million young people who fall into the 20 to 29 age category were registered, and 6.6 million people in the 30 to 39 age category were ready to cast their votes. All three of these categories make up 10.5 million or 40.76% of registered voters in South Africa. Registering is one thing, but voting is another. What's even more scary is looking at the 2019 voter data. Only 19% of all eligible 18 to 19-year-olds actually registered, and only 15% of the eligible 18 to 19-year-olds cast their vote. When we take a look at those
Hi guys, but these numbers are devastating, hey?
Who are a little bit older, only 30% of all eligible 20 to 29-year-olds voted. And in the age category between 30 to 39, only 43% of eligible voters cast a ballot. The youth not registering in significant numbers or even bothering to vote contributed substantially to the 2019 national elections, delivering the lowest voter turnout since 1994. What these figures raise are questions. Questions about the future of South Africa's electoral process and the legitimacy of any democratically elected government. So what exactly is causing all of this voter apathy? Why don't the youth vote? Many young South Africans feel that there is a lack of accountability from political parties and politicians themselves. Distrust in the electoral and political processes because of corruption in government structures is another issue of importance. It's broadly estimated by Unite for Mzansi's state capture case study that through mismanagement and corruption, 1.5 trillion rand was lost to South Africa between 2014 and 2019. Continued high unemployment leads to further youth dissatisfaction with formal political and economic processes. According to Stats South Africa, youth in South Africa continue to be disadvantaged in the labor market with an unemployment rate higher than the national average. Young people are not effectively represented on candidate lists. They don't know how the government works and why their vote matters. But others have argued that youth are not necessarily apathetic to politics, but rather just dissatisfied with government's overall performance. Some youth opt out because they do not know.
But if we are not satisfied with the way the government is doing something, why are we not standing up and doing something about it, man? Because other people are standing up and doing something about it, but why us? Because I'm also trying to understand why South African youth is so discouraged, man. South African youth is so discouraged. It is so painful. You can see the numbers that Mooshtaffa was talking about. Those numbers are devastating. Why are young people so discouraged to go out to vote?
Who to even vote for. And they have no trust that the political parties available to them will resolve the issues that matter most to them, like jobs, crime, corruption, poor public services. So how do we fix this?
So guys, how do we fix this, man? How do we fix this? Because it is a problem. Because I know that there are a lot of people who said that we must stop looking at politics for solutions. We must stop looking at politicians, because politicians are not there to bring solutions. Politicians are there to make sure that we fight with each other. They are there to make sure that they divide people. They divide people with racism. They divide people with tribes. They divide people with the rhetoric and the media. So we must stop looking at politicians for solutions. So if we stop looking at politicians for solutions, what is it that we can do as average South Africans? Because I know that a lot of South Africans are not even interested in this whole thing of politics. They are not interested in ANC, EFF, Freedom Farm Plus, and all of those political parties. So what can we do as South Africans if we are going to turn our backs away from politics? What is it that we can do as South Africans to make sure that some of the things that we want can be achieved without these political figures? Because at this point, South Africans, not just young people, man, South Africans as a whole, they do not trust our political leaders. They do not trust that, like, political parties. They don't even believe that these guys in political parties are being honest with them. Because you know that right now in South Africa, everything that has to do with politics, South Africans, especially average South Africans, are looking at everything through the lens of the African National Congress. So when you talk about elections, the first thing that people think about is the African National Congress. When you talk about politics, the first thing that comes to their minds is the African National Congress, despite all of these opposition parties screaming that we are different. But people, like average South Africans, see politics as one thing. They see these politicians as scammers. So guys, if we were to turn our backs from politics, what is it that we can do as average South Africans to make sure that our lives continue as normal, man? What is it that we can do? And another thing, do they have a political party in Orania, man? Are there political parties in Orania? Are there political parties in Orania, man? I don't know why. I just thought of this right now. Are there political parties in Orania?
What's most important for young people to understand is that, in fact, they have the numbers to win an election. There are plus minus 14 million unregistered young people in this country. For context, in the last election, the ruling party only got 10 million votes. If those 14 million people, actually, even half of those young people, if they showed up, registered, voted for one party, they could reshape the landscape of South African politics. But the truth is that they won't. The IEC's 2021 local government voter participation survey found that less than half, or 45%, of the adult citizenry believe that the youth is interested in elections. The youth's population size makes them a priority, whether they are registered to vote or not. Their numbers mean that their votes can determine...
And again, I think young people are also not interested in politics by also looking at what the politics has done to our higher institutions, man. You look at politics has basically ruined the universities. The politics have ruined the colleges, man, in South Africa, man. Is there anything good that came from having all of these political parties in our universities? Is there anything good that we can say, okay, these are the benefits of having these political parties in our campuses throughout South Africa? Is there anything good that came out of that? Because ever since politics started going hard into these higher institutions, man, it's been protest after protest, man. These guys, they hardly go to classes. And some of these guys, they simply want to go to school. They simply want to finish their degrees, their diplomas, so that they can go out there and look for work. And you have these guys, man, the mini Ramaphosas and Gwedemantashes. out there making sure that nothing works in these universities. So is there anything positive that the politics, like these political parties has done into higher institutions? Because according to me, I feel like this, like politics was never supposed to be allowed to go into higher institutions, man. I think that politics was never supposed to be allowed to go into higher institutions. Because some people, they simply want to finish their degrees so that they can continue with their lives. But right now, they can't do anything because it's always protest. They're always protesting about something. They hardly go to classes.
Election outcome. Although it remains speculation that if the youth were to band together and vote in large numbers, the political parties would have to take their concerns seriously. It's worth recognizing that citizens are not counted as part of the youth forever. Since 2004, the number of adults above 30 years of age who show up at the voting booth has remained steady, and sometimes it's even grown. The argument can thus be made that government clearly prioritizes the concerns of older generations.
Because they know that these guys, man, it's easy for them to go to the polls and vote. It's easy to go to the polls and vote. You know what happens when these guys in government start promising young people things? Young people just simply say, like, you guys are simply lying. You are lying. You are lying, because if there's nothing that government is doing for young people, man, how can young people trust this government when they come and start making promises? You know, these people that you see on your screen, these are the people that were there in 1994. That is the only reason why they still go out there to vote. That is the only reason why they still go out there to vote. But if you look at young people, man, are not even incentivized to go out there to vote. Their lives are practically not changing. They're not incentivized to go out there and vote. But when you look at our elderlies, man, their lives have improved from apartheid to now. From apartheid to now, I can say their life maybe have improved, because they no longer have police going around terrorizing their communities. I know that right now there's still that debate of saying that things were better in apartheid, but I'm simply saying that these people's lives changed. Their life changed. That's why they still go out there to vote. That's why they still cherish the idea of voting. But when you look at young people, man, there's nothing that young people can point and say, okay, guys, this is what our government has done for us. So young people are not even incentivized to go out there to vote. But the question is, what can we do to make sure that young people, man, can realize their power, man? Just imagine 14 million people. The last election, ANC got 10 million people, man. In this country, we have like 14 million. Imagine 14 million young people, man, going out there and voting. Or only half of that. They can change everything. They can change everything. But the problem is that young people in this country are not going to go out there and change it. They are not. They are not, man.
Because they dominate the votes. It's important to note that the lived experience of being a young person is, however, transient. It's not forever. Young people get older, and their needs and views on how to effect change evolves. Political action becomes a must as they get older and start to have families. This means that any study of young people has to take into account both the time during which the group exists and the passage of historical time. Also, it's interesting to note that 2019 youth voter demographics were skewed towards females. More females were registered to vote than males, 53% to 47%.
How do we
get the South African youth to vote? Well, poor political knowledge is one of the issues that results in poor voter turnout amongst young people. To combat this, implementing a required group-based practical and hands-on civic education curriculum in social situations and schools will encourage more young people to get involved in politics and help them build their internal political efficacy that's required for political involvement. Another possibility is to offer a carrot for the youth to vote, whether that might take the shape of NSFAS credits or something of youth significance. Not just free coffee that doubles as free marketing. Broader social changes have weakened young people's sense of belonging to a community and to the country. They don't feel heard, which in turn has exacerbated their political disengagement. Reduce the barriers to registration. This will increase voter turnout.
But what's different with today's youth and maybe let's say the 1976 youth? What's different with them? Because The 1976 youth, they felt like they were not heard, but they still went out there and made sure that everyone hears them. But in South Africa today, we still have young people saying that they are not being heard, but they are not doing nothing about that, man. The young people in the 70s were patriotic. When you look at us right now, how can young people say that we are not heard, but at the same time still do nothing about that? Didn't we learn anything, man, from young people, man, from back in the 80s, in the 70s? Didn't we learn anything from those guys? Didn't we learn how patriotic those guys were? They didn't sit back and say like, okay, guys, we are not heard, and lay back and allow everything to happen. They went out there and made sure that their voices were heard. So what's so different with us and them?
Youth turnout will grow with changes like same-day registration, which can enable young people to register when they go to the polls, even if they missed the registration deadline. Possibly, the introduction of digital voting procedures can boost youth voter turnout. Voting still takes place on paper in South Africa. To capitalize on young people's digital engagements and footprint, digital possibilities should be investigated. Finding a way to verify digital voting will increase...
I guess, but with digital vote, do you think that we'll ever get to a point where we can vote maybe on our phones? Just like that, maybe on an app or something like that. Do you think we can get to a point where we can do that? Because I think that they want to do that, but man, you know that they're gonna hack it, man. They're gonna hack it, I'm telling you. I think that is the only reason why they don't want us to move to this digital voting thing, because they know that, man, the system can get hacked. The system can get hacked. But do you honestly think that we can get to a point where we can vote on our cell phones? And do you think that will maybe encourage young people to vote, because they won't even have to go to the schools, to the halls, or wherever they're supposed to go to vote? They can vote while they are sitting down in their own comfort.
Participation. But then again, there is still great distrust in the digital process at the moment. But with more youth being familiar with the digital universe, it's only a matter of time before this type of voting makes sense. Include young people on the candidates list. The inclusion of young people is likely to increase their political participation. Most political parties are guilty of sidelining the youth. Give them support and collaborate with them to address issues affecting young people. Listen to their ideas for the future. Actually, to address issues of sidelining the youth. Give them support and collaborate with them to address issues affecting young people. Listen to their ideas for the future. Actually support the implementation of those ideas. The best way to convince young people of the importance of their vote is to make an effort to make their voice and vote count. For those interested in the future of the youth vote, it is evident that the issue of upward and social mobility will be key. The truth is that political parties that can show that they are attuned to young people's desires for upward social mobility are likely to get young people to vote for them. And with so many possible voters, it seems that the youth vote might finally be make or break. There are many good reasons why young people should vote and participate in politics. But what lies in front of them are issues that no one seems willing to address. And that in turn makes it harder for them to see any value in South African politics.
So guys, what are your thoughts, man? What are your thoughts? What solutions do we have? What solutions do you have, guys? Because it can't be, man. We cannot continue like this, man. We cannot continue like this. Just imagine, man. 14 million young people, man, sitting at home who are eligible to vote. Can you imagine, man, the kind of shift that we can make as young people in this country, man? So what are you doing individually? Guys, I'm asking you these questions individual. What are you doing to encourage young people to go out there and vote? What are you doing, or what have you done to encourage young people to go out there and vote? And what do you think can be done to encourage young people to go out there and vote? Do you agree with Mooshtaffa about all the solutions that he came up with? Do you agree with those solutions? Guys, so please tell me what are your thoughts, and on the comment section, don't forget to hit that like button. And the most important part, guys, is subscribe. My name is Thomas Vabaza, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.